Good morning, friends. As I was discussing in my last video, we were talking about ways to use up eggs, and I had said that maybe I would make some homemade pasta today, and so that's what I've decided to do. I'm going to make some regular pasta and some chocolate pasta, which I thought sounded amazing, so we'll see how that turns out. So let me get everything ready and we'll get started. Welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey if this is your first time visiting my channel, and as I said, today we're going to be using up some of our excess eggs by making some homemade pasta. I'm going to start by making just a regular white flour pasta. I'm probably going to make some lasagna noodles and some spaghetti or linguine. I'm not sure exactly what all I'm going to make, but we're going to start by putting our mixture together. I'm using the KitchenAid recipe. Oh, that's a spoon. So for this recipe, we need 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. We're going to get that in our KitchenAid. Whoops. Right, there's our flour, and we're just going to put everything into our mixing bowl all together and mix it all up. So next we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and of course I am using my Redmond's real salt. I love this salt. We're going to add 4 large eggs. So I've got some eggs here. I am going to crack them one at a time into this bowl and then pour them in here. We're going to beat them up just a little bit before we add them to our other mixture. Just want to make sure that we don't have anything crazy in our eggs as I'm pouring them together. Whoops. Our chickens are in coops, and so they don't have a way to just run around the yard and lay eggs everywhere where they might not be found for several days or several weeks. But you don't want to crack the last egg and have it be bad when you've got all your other ones already in your bowl. Okay, there's our 4 eggs. I've done that before making cookies, and it's so disappointing to crack that last egg and then you have to completely start over. So I'm gonna use a fork and just beat these eggs just a little bit. Go ahead and add that into our stand mixer bowl. And then we need 2 tablespoons of water. Okay, so we're going to start mixing with our flat paddle, just enough to kind of get everything combined, and then we'll switch to our dough hook. We're going to let this go about a minute or so, and then if you feel like your dough is too dry, you can add some additional water, a half a tablespoon at a time until you feel like it's the right mixture. Everybody's measurements are going to be just a little bit different every time because the humidity in your house, the way you scoop your flour, all of that stuff is going to make a difference. So you may need to add a little more water, you may need to add a little more flour. Mine, I think, is just about right. So I'm going to take the paddle hook off, and I'm going to put the dough hook on. And we're going to let this run for 2 minutes. Okay, so I did end up adding about, oh, maybe a quarter teaspoon of water. I mean, a quarter tablespoon, sorry, quarter tablespoon of water. And now my dough is in a nice ball. So we want to let this rest about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we're going to divide it up and we're going to start running it through the pasta attachments. Set that over there. Go ahead and cover it up with a towel just to keep it from drying out. And now I have the 3-piece attachment. So it's got the rolling, I don't know what it's called, the piece that just rolls it out into flat sheets. And then you can make fettuccine noodles or you can make spaghetti noodles. So as I said, I'm going to start with some flat noodles. I'm going to make some lasagna some lasagna noodles because, of course, later this fall I'll be making a big stash of lasagnas. So we'll start with that. If you do not have a, okay, let me think. I can't remember if we start at the big number or we start at the small number. I think we start at, I don't know, I'll have to look it up. Anyway, we're going to put this in the side of in the attachment piece of our KitchenAid and just tighten it up. So we're going to let that dough sit about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll be back and we will start rolling it out. Okay, it has been about 25 minutes. So I'm going to divide my dough into 4 pieces to work with. We'll just want to work with a quarter of this at a time. I'm going to keep the rest of it in this bowl covered up. So what we're going to do is kind of flatten our dough out a little bit. And we're going to turn this on to a 2. So I have this set at 1. I do start with the small numbers, and we're going to just let this go through. Just like that. And then this first time we're going to fold it in half and send it through again at the 1. Now I'm going to take this and put it, if I can see, I'm going to put it on the 2, and so what we're going to do is run it through progressively smaller until we get it to the thickness that we want. And the first thing I'm going to make here is some lasagna noodles. And I typically run mine through until they're fairly thin. I don't think I go all the way to 10. I can't remember what I did last time. But the lasagna noodles won't have to be quite as thin as maybe the others. So that's a 5. I think I'm going to go to a, oh, maybe that was a 6. I'm going to go through one more time. Maybe. There we go. And if this gets too long to handle, you can always just cut it and then do the pieces separately. Okay, so I'm going to lay this out here. Turn this off. And I'm just going to cut this into approximately lasagna noodle size lengths. And then I'm just going to cut these in half. This is about, I think, the right size for a lasagna noodle. So I'm not going to worry about those pieces that are not full on the bottom like this, where the start was or where the end is going to be. It's just going to go in a lasagna, so it doesn't really matter. You can always cut those off if they bother you, but they don't bother me. And then I've got a bunch of parchment paper out here. I'm just going to lay these pasta sheets out on here. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to get some cardboard. I'm going to transfer all these to some cardboard, and I'm going to take these into another room so that Miss Fuzzy Butt does not decide she wants to get up here and be nosy and get cat hair in our noodles, because we definitely don't want that. Alrighty, so there is our first piece right there. So I'm going to go ahead now and do my second piece. And this piece here, I'm just going to cut it in half this way and just fit it on the paper wherever it fits. So we're not going to waste any of it. So then we're going to do the same thing with this next sheet. So we'll go back to a 1, flatten it out a little bit, run it through the 1 twice, put it through and then fold it, put it through again, and then we will continue just like we did with that first piece. Reduce or increase the number to reduce the thickness and run it through until I get it where I want it. And of course, if you don't have an attachment for your mixer, if you don't have a hand pasta machine, you can roll this out yourself with a rolling pin. It's going to be a little more difficult, of course, to get it uniformly thin, but it can still be done. My mom used to make homemade noodles for soup when we were kids. Ugh, they were so good. My grandma, I remember being at my grandma's and them all making noodles. And of course, my mom didn't have anything like this. They made their dough, they rolled it out by hand, cut it with a knife, and there we go. So probably what I'm going to do is all of this first batch I'm going to make into lasagna noodles, and then I'm going to make another batch and make probably fettuccine, and then we'll do the chocolate. Oh darn. Okay. So our lasagna noodles and our fettuccine or spaghetti, whatever I end up making, I'm going to, as I said, put it on cardboard sheet, take it in another room to dry. It's going to take a few days to dry. When they're completely dry, then I'll go ahead and package them up and have them for whenever I'm ready to make our lasagna or use it for whatever. The chocolate we're actually going to have for dinner tonight. So I'm going to make some Alfredo sauce later for the chocolate, because the chocolate seems like it should be a sweet pasta, but it's not. It's going to be savory as well. And so we're going to add an Alfredo sauce to that, and I'm going to have some shrimp. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out. I'd really love to make some ravioli at some point too. I've never made ravioli, and I don't have a ravioli press, but you really don't need one. You can do it by hand, which is what I will do. Let's see, let's get this out of my way here. And I just have to get the stuff to make the filling. Alrighty. Put this back on our start. Bigger because it's a lot longer than the others. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just finish this. I'm going to do that last piece of dough, and then I'm going to mix up another batch, roll it out like this, and then we'll cut this into some noodles. And so I'll come back when I'm ready to cut that into a different shape. All right, so we've got our second batch of dough ready to roll out. So same as before, we're going to start by running it through the, I wish I knew what this was called, the piece that flattens it out. Before we cut it into our noodles. Whoops. So we're going to go ahead and run it through, reducing the thickness until we get to the thickness we want, and then we'll change the attachment and put the, I think I'm going to do the fettuccine noodles. So I'll switch it to that attachment, and then we'll run the pasta through that attachment. Alright, so for these, I'm only going to go to a 6, so not quite as thin as I made the lasagna. And I am going to cut off the end so that it's straight. because otherwise you end up with all these little pieces that are kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm not going to make these as short as a store-bought noodle, but I'm not going to make them the full length either. All right, so I've got more parchment paper. And then we're just going to, I'm just going to run this through. That, and then I'm just going to lay these noodles, well, as flat as possible on my parchment paper. Alright, this one, I'm just going to cut off a little bit of this end so that it's straight as well, like that. Oh, come on. All right, and so there is our first piece of pasta cut into fettuccine noodles. Slide that over, and then we are going to roll out our second piece, and so on. So the little pieces I cut off, I'm just going to mix back in with this next piece of dough. And start this back off at a 1, and we'll just roll out this next piece, and then we'll cut it. Or we'll run it through the noodle attachment. So I just folded the kind of pointy end of the dough over a little bit to try and get that end to be a little bit flat, or smoother, straighter, whatever I'm trying to say. And that way we won't have to cut so much off. I mean, it's going to get used because we're just going to put it with the next batch of dough, but so, did everybody have a good 4th of July? Those of you that are in the States, obviously if you're not in the United States, you did not celebrate the 4th of July, but everybody who is, I hope that they had a great holiday. We had a bunch of people over to our house. Some of the kids, my sisters, my dad, grandkids, friends of some of our kids. It was a great time. We had about 20, maybe a little more adults here, plus several kids. And it was great. We finally had gotten our pool done. So after we ate, everybody went out into the pool, and it was really a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I like having all the kids here. I like it when it's loud and chaotic, and not forever, but I like it when it's loud and chaotic and the kids are all having a great time and the grandkids are running around crazy. Joe gets a little anxious when it's that crazy, but I like it. But everybody was gone by, everybody was gone by about 6:30, so we sat and relaxed the rest of the evening. Darn it. Relaxed through the evening and went to bed early, and it was awesome. Okay, this piece of pasta is not cooperating, but it'll be fine. You can come on in, Hannah. So these are going to end up with some little short pieces since I didn't do the best job of getting it through the flattening piece, but that's okay. It will still taste good, it won't matter. Whoops. And once it's covered with butter or sauce or whatever you're going to do with it, it doesn't matter if some of the pieces are little. So I'm going to go ahead and get the last two pieces of this dough flattened and shaped into the noodles. I'm going to get it in the other room on some cardboard to start drying, and then I'll be back when we're ready to start the chocolate pasta, which I'm super excited about. Okay, so we got all of the pasta, the two regular pastas. We've got our lasagna noodles, we've got our fettuccine. I've got them in another room where the animals can't get to them so they can dry. And now we're gonna start our chocolate pasta. So the chocolate pasta is a similar set of ingredients. This recipe makes 18 ounces of pasta, so I'm just gonna make one. We're gonna have it with dinner tonight. I think I said that. Maybe I said that, I don't know. So we need 2.5 cups of flour. Two and a quarter cups of flour. We need 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder. Will this fit? Of course not. Whoa! Alright, there's a half. I'm just going to eyeball the quarter because that's how I roll. Alright, there we go. And this one, oh shoot, this one does not need salt, but of course we still need our eggs. So for this recipe we need 3 large eggs. Alright, so we're gonna, just like before, we're going to go ahead and beat those up just a little bit. And add them to our dry ingredients. This one does not use water, I don't think. Let me just take a look. No, it does not. Okay. So I'm just going to follow the other instructions. I didn't follow those instructions exactly. I will go ahead and link that other recipe so you can see what I was supposed to do, but I'm going to use my KitchenAid. So we're going to let the flat attachment run for a minute or so until it's fairly well mixed, and then I'm going to switch to the dough hook and let it run another couple minutes. While that's running, I'm going to go ahead and just get some of this stuff in the dishwasher. This might need a little water. Even though it doesn't call for it, I'm going to put the dough hook in and see how it works, And then if I need to, I will add a little water. Because you guys know I just play with the recipe until I like it. So I know technically you should follow the recipe exactly the first time, but I don't very often do that either. Depends on what it is, I guess. Okay, so I did add about 3 tablespoons of water to this. Maybe if I followed the original instructions, I wouldn't have needed it, but that's okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our dough in some plastic wrap. Try to make sure I've got it. Here we go. Uh-oh. I missed. So we're going to use a plastic wrap to kind of help us squeeze this into a ball. So this will just squish it all together. Oops, except that piece that flew out. All right, so I'm just going to wrap this like that. And we are just going to set it on the counter and we're going to let it sit for about an hour. And then we'll come back and roll it out and shape it, and we're going to cut fettuccine noodles with that. So while that's resting, I'm gonna go ahead and put all of this mess away, and then I'll be back when we're ready to roll this chocolate dough out. Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and start rolling out this chocolate pasta. Some of it is not staying together, so we're going to see how this works. Might have to add, oh, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. If we need to, we'll just add a little more water. Oh yeah, this is going to be a problem. Alrighty. Darn, of course I washed the bowl. Oh, of course my husband's gonna mow grass now. Hopefully it doesn't get too loud in here. All right, let's try this. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully this will be better. Oh my gosh. All right, so I put a little bit of flour down because now I think it's a little bit too wet. I don't know. We'll see what happens. can't remember if I said this, but this is not a sweet pasta. It's designed to be a savory pasta. So I'm going to make some Alfredo sauce at dinner time to go with it. We're going to have some shrimp. So it is about noon right now, just a little after. So I will let this pasta just dry on the counter until we're ready to do dinner. And so it'll be partly dried and not quite, obviously, and that will be fine. You can also freeze this. After you roll it out and then shape it, then you can freeze it flat and then put it in a bag. I was trying to figure out if I could freeze dry it from fresh. I never really got a clear answer from anything that I looked at. So if you guys know the answer, if you've ever tried freeze drying fresh pasta, let me know, and let me know what you think, how it came out. But since we're having this with dinner, there's no need to worry about it at all. So I'm just going to cut this in half. This is a little bit stickier than the other dough was. Probably because I didn't do it right, but that's okay. I'm just going to lay it out like this. It's kind of sticking in this attachment a little bit. So I'll probably really have to clean. Oh, it's not stuck too bad. Oops. So now that I added too much water, I'm going to have to add a little bit of flour. But we'll see how this works out. So we'll go ahead and do 4 pieces, just like we did with the other. Rolled out. I'm going to go ahead and shape it and get it on this paper. And I'm not worrying about laying these out flat and straight because we're going to cook it later today in a few hours. So I don't need to worry about laying it flat so that it dries evenly. Alrighty, last piece through the shaper. Okay. So I've got all this chocolate pasta now out on, it's all flattened and shaped and out on the parchment paper. Oh my goodness. Out on the parchment paper to partially dry. I am going to cover it just because we've got some flies in here and I don't want the cat to decide she should get up here and help herself. And so then I'll be back at dinner time. We're going to cook up this pasta. We're going to make our Alfredo sauce and we will cook our shrimp and we'll see how this tastes. It smells delicious, so I'm hoping it tastes as good as it smells. So I'll be back in a little while. All right, we're going to go ahead and start putting our dinner together. So we're going to get our shrimp cooking. And I'm going to use some of these pucks of garlic that we made in the last video. And while that's cooking, then we're going to go ahead and start our Alfredo sauce. So we're going to do our pasta last because fresh pasta only takes about 2 or 3 minutes to cook. It's not like a dried pasta that's going to take 12 minutes or whatever. So we're going to start with 6 tablespoons of butter, which is 3/4 of a stick. Oops. And we're going to get that melting in our pot. To our butter, we're going to add about a tablespoon of minced garlic. So I'm going to add about 3 pucks. We're going to put the rest in the freezer. We're going to add a teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm just going to cook this until the garlic is kind of melted into, our garlic pucks have kind of melted. It shouldn't take long. We're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Add a little lemon juice to our shrimp. And now we're going to sprinkle 2 tablespoons of flour over our butter and garlic mixture. We're going to whisk this together and let it cook for just a minute. And to this we are going to whisk in 1 1/4 cups of heavy cream. And 1 1/2 cups of milk. Now it calls for whole milk. I don't have whole milk, so I'm going to use the 2% that I've got. I'm going to whisk this in as well. Once this mixture starts bubbling, we're going to turn it down to low and let it simmer. While that's cooking, we're going to go ahead and get our Parmesan cheese grated up or shredded up. And I'm going to go ahead and start getting our water ready for our pasta. And you want it to be heavily salted, so I'm going to put about 2 or 3 teaspoons in there and let it come to a boil. Okay, while that's cooking down, I'm going to go ahead and grate this cheese. So we're going to add our cheese now. We want a cup of our Parmesan. And we're going to whisk that in until it melts. And then I'm going to add some black pepper to this. Alright, and now I'm going to set this to the back here and just let it stay warm. Whoa. And then we're going to let our pasta water finish coming to a boil, and then we'll go ahead and mix everything up and we will be ready to eat. I'm going to add a little more cheese to my sauce. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add our pasta in here. Like I said, this is only going to take a couple of minutes. All right, that's done. So I'm going to go ahead and drain this now. And I'm going to whisk this up and pour it over our pasta. Look at this. Yummy. Oh my goodness. If you've never made your own Alfredo sauce, it is so worth it. As you can see, it was very simple and so much more delicious than a jar that you buy at the store. Okay. I didn't want to cook all that pasta. I was afraid it would be too much for just me and Joe, so I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm actually going to go ahead and add our shrimp in. Go ahead and stir that up a little bit, and then I'm going to plate up our dinner and we'll be ready to eat. Okay, here's that. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit more of this cheese over the top of it. Smells good. Alright, so we're going to give this a taste. I don't know if you guys can see the steam there, but it's hot.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So good. Okay. So we got our lasagna noodles made. We've got our fettuccine. We've got half of our chocolate fettuccine left. I'm not gonna wait until this dries because it's gonna be 3 or 4 days before the pasta is dry enough for me to put away. But you know, one thing I will say is that, is it cheaper to make your own pasta? Probably not. I mean, you can buy a package of noodles at Walmart for $1 something, $1.10 or $1.12, whatever. The chocolate's probably cheaper to make at home, yes. But the thing is, if you've got lots of eggs, it gives you a way to use them. And you know what went into these. The only thing in these is flour, water, eggs, and salt. Whereas the store-bought pasta has preservatives and chemicals in it. And so this is obviously going to be a much healthier way to go. Now, if you buy store-bought pasta, I'm not judging. I do it. But this is absolutely, when you have the time and the energy to do this. And obviously it wasn't difficult. It just takes some time it is definitely worth the time and effort that you put into it. So that's going to do it for today, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thanks so much for watching.